So many times in our lives we are faced with situations and challenges that within the human mind look impossible. There are problems that in the spectrum of human thinking are impossible. Giant mountains that look unclimbable. Obstacles that look immovable. Volatile situations that any more mistakes would mean the end. That makes our faith quiver to the roots. Yes, there are so many battles we fight that look just way above you because you cannot understand where they are even coming from. These giants have defied every possibility in our minds, defied every trial in our minds. They have become like a problem you would live with for the rest of your life. But in the book of Samuel 17:45, the boy David looked at the human giant obstacle, Goliath, who had defied the ranks of Israel for days, made a mockery of them and their God, and David said to him, "You come against me with a sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel who you have defied." Remember the story of Moses and the children of Israel before the Red Sea. In an impossible situation, faced with the Red Sea before them, and behind them were the army of Egypt with a kill or capture order. Panic set in. Fear gripped them. There were legitimate doubts if this was the will of God for them because of the Red Sea they cannot cross, and going back meant almost certain death and harder slavery. I remember also the story of the Wall of Jericho. Joshua and the army of God were defeated for days without a sword even drawn, yet a giant was standing in their way. But in Josh 5:20, the Bible said, "When the trumpets sounded, the army shouted, and at the sound of the trumpet, when the people shouted, the wall of Jericho collapsed, and the people charged in and took over the city." It didn't matter who stood in front of David. It didn't matter what was in front of Moses, or who was behind him. It didn't matter what his people were saying. It didn't matter what had been built to withstand Joshua and the army of God. There is a higher force. The Bible calls him the mighty force that is available to handle situations that seem impossible, situations that have defied all your human abilities, situations that won't budge. God is bigger than all of our situations packed together. It is time to let God be God and you take a step away from this battle. That giant you are facing alone, in your secret place, you cry at night in bed and your pillows are wet with your tears in the morning. Your blood pressure rises anytime you think of that problem. You have faced it alone for years, decades, months, weeks, days. It is time to let God fight your battles now. You have done your best that your humanity can permit. Let God step in and calm these storms raging. In the book of Samuel, Hannah was a lady scorned by nature, turned into a mockery by her mates, laughed at by society. Her barrenness must have defied everything possible, medically, technologically, and herbal fertility boosters. But there's one more place she hadn't tried: Shiloh, the mountain of the Almighty God. She appeared with her sorrows, with all her scorns, with all the laughter in her heart, and the Bible said in 1 Samuel 1:13 that now Hannah spake only in her heart. Only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought she was drunk of wine. That was a woman pained, a heart tired from fighting alone. Her words at that point couldn't communicate the grief in her heart. Child of God, you might be in that same place right now, fighting alone, tired of fighting alone. As your strength ends, any more looks to be too much for you already. Let God fight your battles for you. This is time to let God fight now. The woman with the issue of blood. For 12 years, her condition defied all medical approaches. Physicians were tired of her case. She was religiously declared legally unfit. Her rights to free movement taken away, an outcast among her own people. But in verse 28 of Mark 5, she thought in her heart, "If only I can but touch the ear of his garment, I shall be well." She did, and she got well. God is always ready. His power is never in doubt, never unavailable. All we need to do is stretch forth thine hand. Put your hand in his hands and let him lead you through these muddy waters. Your case doesn't scare him. Your problem isn't new to him. Jeremiah 1:5 says, "Before I formed thee in the womb, I knew thee." He is aware of your situations. He sees everything you have gone through and what is happening at the moment. He knows where every scenario ends from the beginning. He is just waiting for you to stretch forth your hand and let him step in for you. 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray, and seek my face and turn away from their wicked ways, then shall I, God, hear them from heaven, and shall heal their land. God is confident in his ability to save you, stabilize your storm, defend you, and fight on your behalf. He doesn't doubt if he can deliver you. He had done that many times, and you need to let him step on board now. You have ridden these waves, these turbulent waves alone. Just like the apostles, wake up now and invite God into that storm. Let the Prince of Peace bring calm to your life. Psalms 4:1. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. What troubles you? What challenges are you facing? What giants have refused to move from your path? You lost friends because of them. Your family and friends might have turned their backs on you. Some of them can help, but are not available. The available ones cannot help, but hear this now. God is an ever-present help in times of trouble. He was there in the fire with the 3 Hebrew boys. He was there with Daniel when he was thrown into the lion's den. You do not need to continue this journey alone anymore. You have a present helper now. He is always willing to hold your hands through the storm. He is never afraid of your situations. The psalmist sang, "My foes are ever near me, around me and within. But Jesus, draw thou nearer and shield my soul from sin." In the midst of foes, in the midst of adversities, there's God telling you to let him, your helper, and all you have to do is decide, Jesus, now I am done being strong, help my weakness. The blind man in the book of Luke knew all he had to do was get Jesus to look in the direction of his challenge. He knew all he had to do was get Jesus to look his way and into his situation. He didn't have sight to see Jesus' works, but he had heard of them, and in Luke 18:38, he called out to him, "Thou son of David, have mercy on me." That was the only invitation Jesus needed to step into his situation. Child of God, why don't you stop struggling with God and let him struggle? The disciples and Jesus were in a boat going across the lake. Jesus was asleep, and suddenly a giant storm rose against them. The men were running helter-skelter, looking for solutions to calm the ship. The problem was not the ship. The challenge was the storm raging beneath it. They were going in a frenzied panic, trying to stable a ship in the midst of a storm. Jesus was still sleeping, and the Bible, in the book of Matthew 8:25, the disciples went and woke him, saying, "Lord, save us, we're going to drown." He replied, "You of little faith, why are you so afraid?" Then he got up and rebuked the winds and the waves, and it was completely calm. The men were amazed and asked, "What kind of man is this? Even the winds and the waves obey him." Hear me, child of God. Jesus knows what needs to be calmed in your life. You have been pulling at the mast of your ship, changing directions every moment of your life, looking for a respite, looking for a new identity. But Jesus knows where the storm is ranging from. All he needs is the chance to step in. The disciples only needed to tell him about the storm, and all it took was a "Peace, be still." Have you told Jesus about this storm yet? Have you told your Father about the giants of your life yet? He knows all the things. He sees all the things, but you owe him an invitation into that situation today. The ship is fine. The masts are fine. You are not the problem. The storm is, and only Jesus can calm that storm, child of God. The paralytic man by the pool of Bethesda, troubled with afflictions. The Bible said he had been lying there, bent with afflictions for years. He had witnessed people jump into the pool when the angel of the Lord stirred it, and they got healed. He was there, no help, nobody to move him into the pool. He knew when the angel of the Lord came every season. He heard joy and gladness from other people, but his case remained the same every season. Until Jesus came into the picture. And in the book of John 5:7, the sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. But while I am coming, another steps down before me." Jesus said to him, "Rise, take up your bed and walk." And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed, and he walked. Jesus is able to speak life into dead situations. Remember the story of Lazarus? Raised from the dead after 3 days. That is the resurrection power of God. And all you need to do is tell him to calm the storm. He is never far away. All you have to do today is ask him for help. Ask him to step into the situation. Tell him you have met your last strength. Ask God to step into that car today. Move over to the passenger seat, put your GPS off, wear your seatbelt, and trust Jesus to take the wheel of your life today. He has never led anyone astray. He has never left anyone stranded. There is no battle he has not won, and there's none he cannot win.